Hi, this is Charlie Mato-Toyela, and once again back with another episode of the Left Behind Natives podcast, where we try to dig some Native Americans up out there. Anyway, today we have a friend of mine, once again, that's joining us. He is a member of the Lumbee tribe in North Carolina. His name is Dylan Joseph Hayes, and I'd like to introduce him and give him a chance to say a little bit about himself here before I start asking him a couple of questions I have for him, especially now in recent times that there's things going on in the news media with regards to the Lumbee tribe. It's certainly a good time, I think, that we get to hear from them. So, Dylan, who are you? What you been doing?
Absolutely. So my name, as you said, is Dylan Joseph Hayes. I am a enrolled student at UNC Pembroke, University of North Carolina at Pembroke. I'm also a member of the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina. In my spare time, I like to make Native American flutes, make jewelry. I'm wearing That's one of cool. The jewelry pieces I made right now.
Oh, that looks amazing.
Thank you. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, so Native American flutes is actually how Dylan and I met. I've met so many people along the way like that. A couple of years ago, my wife and my youngest son and I went to the Lumbee homecoming, which they have, and he played stickball, and I spoke to a couple of the members out there, and since then have befriended a couple of members of the Lumbee tribe, and I do have another one who is currently a council member. I think she's about to retire from that, who I'm hoping to come on one of our next episodes. I've been talking to her a lot, and certainly have met some very wonderful people that are members of the Lumbee. So speaking of the Lumbee, and speaking of news and everything that's going on in the world today, Dylan, I'm not going to ask you how you voted. We already talked about that, a year ago. So I'm not interested in how you voted, and I don't want to allude to my own, voting or not voting. I can tell you I've only voted like 3 times in my whole life. And I'll be honest with you, I think every time I've regretted it, so I may not be voting again. But and I'm not putting down the current administration at all, because, your regrets may come from small things or big things, and once again, that's not what we're here about. So, like I said, if you want to share your political preference, that's fine. But, I think most people realize that I'm conservative, and that's kind of the direction that I head, but that doesn't mean anything. Anyway, long story short, the most recent president, who shall remain nameless, signed something called the Lumbee Cares Act. And like myself, you've probably read through the Lumbee Cares Act. Even if only briefly. I think everybody should. I really do. Things that affect Native communities, we should all look into those. I say that after even today having read some other bills that were passed through other Native communities that got me scratching my head. The Lumbee Cares Act is a no-nonsense bill that basically is there to recognize the Lumbee tribe in North Carolina. And the Lumbee tribe, of course, is named after the river there in Lumberton, and they are made up of mainly, and you'll forgive me, but mainly, I think it's Chiraw, Croatan, and Cherokee, probably a good handful of Tuscarora Indians. But today, like you and I have talked, we both have family in every other tribe from the Southeast, but I think that its main purpose today, and what we call them, are the Lumbee tribe. But how did you feel about the moment when the new presidential administration, the president even said, "I love the Lumbee tribe," which to me, that's a wonderful thing. Whether you're for him or against him, the fact that he signed it, it means a lot. It really does. So what do you think that is going to mean for your people in the long run?
So when I first heard about him signing the Lumbee Cares Act, I was very excited, but at the same time, we have been fighting for federal recognition for well over 100 years, so I'm kind of cautious at the same time, but it is a good bit of news nonetheless that he did sign that executive order and get that process moving for the Lumbee Cares Act, and I'm very excited to see where it goes from now.
Well, I'll tell you with my own experience, I know you and I have talked about a lot of things, and a lot of times when I spout out names of like my ancestors or something, grandmothers and great-grandmothers and I can remember so many of these people's names. I have a mild photographic memory. There are so many things I forget. I'll forget your middle name at the end of this podcast. But so many things that I forget, but there's so many things that I remember. And I'm going to tell you something that it is my sincerest hope that this is what it means for you and your tribe. A lot of tribes that were faced with, termination and dissolve back in the early 1900s, all of us face that. All of us face that. A lot of tribes that face that may have struggled when the new carrot that's dangled over our head is federal recognition. A lot of the tribes that didn't get federal recognition through the OFA, the Office of Federal Acknowledgement, I can tell you, I've read court documents after documents, and even today, like I say, the ones I was reading today are no different. A lot of these tribes use that gentleman's pen that signed the Lumbee Cares Act as proof of your working with the federal government. To me, as far as federal acknowledgement goes, that's really enough. Before we started this episode, you and I were talking about some of the tribes in Virginia, and I can tell you some things about some of those tribes. I've read so much. I've got family from there. Truth be known, more than likely you have family from there. I'm not sure because I don't know your genealogy, but I see all of mine. The way that the 5 tribes in Virginia became federally recognized in 2018, they were already denied by the OFA, or at least on their way to being denied. I mean, like so many of us. And they went to the court system and they said, look, we're native as you get, and the court system said, you're absolutely right. And there's other tribes out there. There's a really great people that are in San Francisco. Most people don't know there's a tribe in San Francisco, California, but I'm so thankful to have learned and met them. But those people were, like the Lumbee, federally recognized back in the early 1900s, and then it was denied later on. Go ahead, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to evaluate on what you just said, federally recognized in the late 1900s, and then we were denied the same benefits as, say, other tribes.
That's right. And that was through another president signing another document. And he didn't come up with this document on his own. This is the thing that nobody really thinks about. And I'm not here to bash anybody. I like to keep this as positive as possible, but I do like people to look a little further. Somebody had to hand him that bill. Somebody handed that other president back, nearly 100 years ago, a bill and said, we need to get rid of these people. They're not Indian. And of course, the BIA in North Carolina says you're Indian, and a lot of family history and genealogy and records and everything out the wazoo. You have an Indian college, which usually is enough for most tribes. That's more than most tribes, as a matter of fact. You have an Indian college there in the middle of your property that I may be wrong in saying it belongs to the Lumbee, but no different than the colleges that belong to other tribes, really. I do know when I was in history in the 12th grade in high school that my history teacher fortunately discussed some things with us about the Lumbee tribe and told us about your particular situation and how you were recognized. And then this president signed a bill, the Lumbee Act, and it removed and revoked. And actually, the hardest thing that it did was it denied the Lumbee from ever becoming federally recognized again. That was the worst thing of that. And that, I think, was not only unconstitutional as far as us being citizens of this great country, but I think it was also obvious that it was a blatant attack by another group of Native people. And once again, not naming any names, I haven't even researched it, but I know that the president didn't say, let's get rid of these guys, because at that point in history, they'd already gotten rid of most of us. Technically, most of the tribes were dissolved, and especially the 5 quote unquote civilized tribes were all, supposedly dissolved because of the roles that they had out there, the Dawes Act. They were all dissolved by 1913, but other tribes that, were able to keep their head above water, the Lumbee being one of them. Like I said, you got to college. That's better than a lot of us. But now, thankfully, once again, another president with some positive things on his mind decided to put his pen on a document that said that you guys are Native, and I'm so happy to see that. So can you explain what it's like living as a part of this tribe and how it's impacted your experience growing up, Lumbee?
So growing up Lumbee, obviously I grew up in Robeson County. I was born and raised in Lumberton, North Carolina. There's a lot going on in Robeson County that is not so good, but there are some really good people in Robeson County. So I feel like that has helped shape how I grew up as a Lumbee, growing up in our home county of Robeson County. I would say it shaped me and making me appreciate my family a lot more. Appreciation of where I come from. Very prideful for being Lumbee Indian. To the root, it's all about your pride and where you come from.
Right.
Growing up as a Lumbee.
Yeah. So in your family, let me cross the border here. I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to ask you this question because I already know the answer is no. But here in my beautiful state of Alabama, I was telling you off camera that I had a great-great-grandmother from Lumberton that moved here. One of my ancestors from your neck of the woods. But here in Alabama, there's a lot of people that aren't a member of a tribe. And a lot of us that, I'm trying to be politically correct when I say this too, because I want to make sure that I reflect positive on both of our, ancestors especially. But here in Alabama, there is a thing that has circulated so much that even one of our other presidents, and I will mention his name, Bill Clinton, had it investigated. So many people have family members that have told them stories that their grandmother or their great-grandmother was Native American, and typically it's Cherokee. You can read exactly what I just said. You can read on the BIA and the DOI, the Department of Interior's website. You can read that so many people say that their family members are Cherokee. So once again, President Clinton, something that most people don't know. Unfortunately, one of my friends that I was mentioning his name before we started this is the gentleman that told me about it because of his particular situation. There was a gentleman that his name was John Youngwolf, who was a member of the Eastern Band, that was hired by Bill Clinton. Youngwolf was a military guy, and he was hired by Bill Clinton to investigate all these people in Alabama and Arkansas, Texas, probably not so much in North Carolina, because usually in North Carolina you're a member of an existing tribe already. Your family didn't drift away from them, although there is some of that, whether it's forcibly like it is in the Southeast, or if it's kind of less common like it is with your people, don't normally wind up drifting away. They may move across the country, but they're still Lumbee, but with everybody else, like I said, especially those who claim Cherokee, Clinton actually hired this guy to go find out why are so many people saying that their grandmothers and great-grandmothers and whatever are Indian. And he come back and gave his report to Clinton. And his report wound up proving that 99% of them are of Native American descent. Before we started this episode tonight, as I usually do, I was thumbing through information on family and what have you, and I looked up this guy in my family. He married my second great grandmother, or second great grandmother. He married her, and he married her to get her like allotment here in Alabama. It's documented. He married another Indian woman and got her allotment as well of the land that the government set aside for us in 1817 through a treaty that we had in this state. Of course, not just in this state. We had it in North Carolina, Georgia, and in Tennessee. But specifically, Alabama kind of honored everything that was going on in so many ways. But anyway, he got this land, and then like one of his Indian wives, he divorced. So the children he had with that woman, even though this was a non-native, that's a polite way of saying a white guy, he's a non-native, he married this Indian lady, had kids with her, and got her land, and then he divorced her and married my great-great-grandma, got her land. I don't know if they got divorced or not. It's kind of, shadowy there, so I don't know for sure. I don't think they stayed together. He was in the habit of getting the Indian lady's land, so if he had kids with any of them, there's kids out there that have the last name Stevens that are, probably identifying as not being native, but their great-grandmas were, so there's a lot of that. And the reason I ask you this question is because I know that, once again, your answer is already going to be no, but have you ever heard a story that your great-grandma might be Indian?
No.
No, I didn't think so. So, that's the difference between growing up with your family and knowing who they are, which, growing up in Lumberton really means that. And people that maybe didn't. And like we discussed, I know for a fact there's a lot of Lumbee people that have moved out of state, and they come back usually for homecoming, which is great. And then they come back every 7 years to kind of like renew their vows is really what it's all about. But the fact of the matter is they identify with being Lumbee, and it makes me proud, that one great-great-grandmother that I know for a fact come from Lumberton. It really does make me proud. But a lot of these people, like I say, it doesn't make them not native, but like you and I, we knew our family was native, and there's just so much about that in your particular, you're in a special position where you grew up, with your tribe, which is, and once again, it's an amazing thing. So as a student at UNC Pembroke, a school which, of course, not only has deep Lumbee roots, like I mentioned, it's an Indian school, how do you see education playing a role in the shaping of the future of your tribe?
I see it being a very important future role for the tribe because not only have I going to this university, but my grandfather as well went to the university when it was Pembroke State. He got his degree in business. My grandmother also went to UNC Pembroke. Both of them are Lumbee Indians, and she got her degree in early childhood development. And then my mom, who was also Lumbee, went to UNC Pembroke for a major in biology and chemistry. Now I'm going to UNC Pembroke. I'm trying to get my degree in sociology, and I'm working on track to getting it in 2028.
All right, man.
I think
that's great.
I think the biggest thing about going to UNC Pembroke that I love is the fact that my family had went there before. And the fact that I knew that it was a school for Indians, not only Lumbee, but any Native American person that was around during the time of segregation. Because I know from my family telling me before that, if you were a dark-skinned person, you would have to go to the colored school. If you were a white person, you'd have to go to a white school, or like a white person, same skin color.
Yeah.
But that the fact that it was a school for Native Americans in this part of the world was a big thing for me to actually like apply to go to the university, as well as my family going there. So I do see that having a big impact on the future for the tribe, and not only just for me.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a very well-educated family, for that matter, too.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great thing, man.
I also have other family, like Dr. Bell. He went to UNC Pembroke and got his medical degree at Chapel Hill.
Okay.
I also have Dr. Bell. I know some Knights are also last name, surname Knight, that went to UNC Pembroke as well. Those are also part of my family. I'm related to them. So just a big thing in Robeson County. Everybody knows about the college. We usually just call it the college.
Right.
But we're talking about.
Well, I'm going to be completely honest with you. When I've been to the campus there, it was amazing.
Yes.
I've actually attended oh my goodness, a meeting that my friend I was mentioning earlier, who's a member of council there, she invited me to come to listen, which was amazing. The people that I met were something else, and to be completely honest with you, before I had met you and before I had gone to the school and met anybody else that went there, graduated from there, what have you, I actually knew countless other natives that went to Pembroke that weren't from Lumberton, from all over the country, from New Mexico, friends that are from, southeast North Carolina, but other native friends from all over. As a matter of fact, one of my native friends today, a very close friend who sent me that news article I was telling you about earlier, he is going to Pembroke right now and met his fiancée there, which is great. And she is a Lumbee, and I've met her, and she's great. I'm very proud for him. But I can't remember what she's studying there, and to be honest with you, I forget what he's studying too. Most of people's college studies just kind of in one ear and out the other, I actually, my daughter, I told you, graduated from Auburn about 2 weeks ago, and I have to recite what it is that she did for me to remember it. If I don't recite it, I can't remember it. I don't know. That's not something that sticks in my head like words I can see,
I do remember at the orientation ceremony, I did hear that UNC Pembroke is the most diverse school in the UNC network. Coming from being segregated, I find that very interesting how we have people from not only all over America, but all over the world that go to UNC
Absolutely.
Pembroke, which I have
Absolutely.
met. They're all amazing people. They're all fantastic people.
Seems like the school only lets good ones in.
Yeah.
It is amazing though, and the fact that the campus is right in the middle of Lumberton, it's hard to miss, it
In
really
the middle
is.
of Pembroke.
Yeah, in the middle of Pembroke, of course. But anyway, yeah, it's hard to miss when you're driving along. You're like, what is this big fancy place? So for people that may not know much about the Lumbee, what are some things that you wish that they understood about your tribe's culture and history? And in answering this, Dylan, you can tell me things that have to do with that little message we're going to talk about in a minute. Might be something that we revisit, or you can just omit that part and we'll come back and revisit it before the end of the episode. But what's some things that you wish people knew about your tribe's history and culture?
So when I went to get my Lumbee Indian card, my ID, my tribal ID, they let us watch a 40-minute video, and it talked about the history of the tribe. And in that, they talked about the Algonquin, Tuscarora, and Cherokee that lived around this river back in the day. But what it didn't talk about was, it might have mentioned this, but I do not recall it talking about the Lost Colony of Roanoke and its involvement with the Lumbee tribe. I do believe that that Lost Colony had a lot to do with the integration into settlements coming over from a different land, integrating into Native Americans' societies and cultures, like peacefully.
Right. Sure.
Actually getting along. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot to do with where the history and just the core of the history comes from is the adaptation we did to survive, how we adapted to survive throughout the times.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, definitely resilient to have, the tribe's resilience is obvious whenever I see all the junk they've been through, I mean, from day one. The Chiraw side of the family and knowing the Chiraw Wars and the Cherokee Wars and the Tuscarora Wars. Oh my goodness. All that aside, then you've got the whole Civil War. You've got dealing with our own people wanting to fight with us and what have you. There's just it's never ending. It really is never ending. And the fact that Lumbee are still there, that is a testament to the people's resilience. It really is. And as far as the Lost Colony, that is something I think we should come back and revisit a little bit later on. What we'll do is probably have an episode about that, because most of the people out there hear the words Lost Colony and they don't know what to think. I'm going to share a couple of other ideas with you about that, so that we can really consider coming back to this. There are countless people, and I can't say that I subscribe to the idea or that I'm against it, but there's countless people that believe that specifically Cherokee people are the lost tribe of Israel. And that having been said, I do know that from the location of the Norse colonies in the northeast of the United States that have been here long before Columbus landed, I do know with those Norse colonies, there's a good chance that we may all have intermixed with different peoples. And I'm not going to speak on behalf specifically of Cherokee people, because, even the Shawnee are originally from the same place, and what have you, from where Cherokee came from, or that we think that they came from, up in the Northeast. But there's a thing that I've noticed with any of our peoples that are from this particular area, okay? I'm not going to call them Cherokee or Lumbee or Chiraw or, PD or any specific groups. I'm just going to say our people from this area. Most of us have the same kind of eyes, which don't look European. And I don't mean the shape of our eyes or, bloodshot. I mean...
But more like the way you look and, your character of your eyes.
Well, no, actually, it's almost the color. My dad's eyes on his first driver's license, he showed me, said that his eyes were brown. And they weren't just brown. He told me they were like almost black. When he got to be 20, I think about 25 or so, they put hazel on there on his driver's license. And then later on down the road, they put blue. And when my dad passed away in his 70s, they were, kind of between these colors, they were very light blue color. And it's not something that I see in primarily European descent people, They're either this way or that way or something like that. But we all seem to share something with our eyes in that particular color. Mine are listed as hazel. My oldest boys are listed as hazel. My youngest boy looks like my wife's. And my daughter's eyes are bright blue, like my dad's were when he passed away, and like her grandmother, who was Tuscarora, okay, on my mom's side or on her mom's side of the family, So it's amazing to me that not more people are talking about this one little genealogical, trait that we all seem to carry. There's a color in there, and mine do change a little bit. They're not always the same color. But there's a color in there that we all seem to it's like our palette is different. Our color palette is different for eyes. Once
Right.
again, probably here nor there, but we of course all do resemble, and for that reason, I think that the colony of Roanoke probably was the third time we mixed with people, or at least the second, other than our own, and not to mention the tribes of our peoples all absorbed and what have you. Um, there are documents of some groups, whenever one tribe was in a war and they lost all but 20 people, they just went and joined this other tribe, and sometimes they didn't even speak the same language. So there were some things that happened down the road that people don't know about, and the Lost Colony of Roanoke is certainly it's a fine example of that. I mean, the people had to go someplace,
Right.
and if they died, where's their bodies? I mean, what happened? Weren't as many headhunters up here as there were in South America, where my grandmother's family was from. So I don't think they got disappeared that way. But anyhow, on to our last question here. What are your hopes for the future now that federal recognition is on the horizon, not just for the Lumbee people, but for you personally as a young Native American?
I feel like everybody that would be asked that question in the tribe would obviously say they want the same benefits as, say, the Seminole or like the Eastern Western Band Cherokee. But I would say I would be happy if we were, just to get the benefits of just a free education and free healthcare. That's like the two big things that I feel like we should honestly have, is free education, free healthcare. Other than that, I know there are things that we could have to help better our lives, like maybe like federal, like a check every month or every year.
Yeah, right.
Per se.
Right.
But I feel like that really, it doesn't matter as much as, say, free healthcare and free education for everyone in the tribe. To me, at least.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I would say that'd be the bare minimum.
The bare minimum, yes, for sure.
Yeah. And my way of looking at that is, because once again, I said I'm very conservative, and the conservative notion amongst, most American, primarily non-native conservatives, although there's a lot of native conservatives, I feel like they probably believe like I do, that you come here, you destroy our people, and, then you decided it was okay for some of us to integrate into society. Some of our people built this beautiful country from whatever angle you want to look at it, whether it be the wars that we fought in for the government, or for the ones that, we fought overseas in the last 50 or 100 years. We built this country, but we are still native. We're not Europeans. We may have European, some of us have European distant ancestors, but we didn't grow up European. Not for the most part. The whole country has a certain culture about it, and we do reflect some of that culture, but we also reflect our own as well. And like I said, least they can do, I would say, for living on our land, and not trying to open up that can of worms. That was younger me. When I was your age, that was me, pissed off at the world, hating people for stepping foot on my land. And the thing that still eats me up, because I've got family from North and South America, chopping it in half, that really made me so mad. I'm still angry about that. When they cut the Panama Canal, they separated my continent, and that just really, Dylan, I can't tell you enough how bad that makes me angry. I didn't give them permission to do that. But anyway, like I said, there's so much that we could ask for. Other tribes who are given tools that have made the entire tribe stinking rich, or has made the leadership of that tribe stinking rich, if you know who I'm talking about. But giving us tools to help us better ourselves and our people. It's not that we don't want to try. It's not that most of your family went to college. That's saying something, and best I can tell, either on their dime or on a dime of a program that may have been set up for them already. And we're not talking about one set up for the Lumbee, which we really need to be talking about that apparently. But in any case, I definitely agree, and I don't think I would settle for anything either. I think I would, those Virginia tribes, from my understanding, when they became federally recognized, they had to give up the right, because of the towns that their people live in, they had to give up the right to open a casino. That nasty C word that we always try to avoid. So when they signed, the agreement to become federally recognized, they got all the things that you're talking about, except they didn't get a casino. And they actually specifically, once again, to my understanding, I haven't read all the documents fully, but I've talked to enough of the people. They said, okay, we promise we will never open a casino. Well, of course, as some of those very wealthy other tribes are very smart, or at least their lawyers are, or leadership went to school to be an attorney, as I've mentioned on other episodes. Another tribe stepped in that is very familiar with having casinos and have rented property from one of these other tribes to open a casino there. Okay. And, I hope that it is making the tribe who is renting the property some money. I hope it's helping the people. I really do. Because otherwise, I know who it is helping. And that we can't live like that. This is a very diverse country of Native people, just like the Lumbee that, once again, before this episode, I promise you, as embarrassed as I am to say it, there's people who probably didn't know who the Lumbee were, but they should. They really should. One of the largest tribes in the southeast of the United States, I think the largest, if I'm not mistaken, and only really second, I think, to those who shall not be named, and some Western tribe, one Western tribe out there that has a lot of family. But anyway, the Lumbee's a big group of people, and they really should know more about that. They really should.
I think last time I checked, we have around 60,000 enrolled members, which is kind of crazy because our sister tribe, the Catawba, have around 3,500. And that's a big difference from when you're comparing tribes, which I don't like to do, but
No, we can't. We can do it for the metrics, but we can't do it otherwise. I'll tell you this. There's a tribe on the ballot right now that has about 400 people that are getting recognized. There's some of those federal tribes that got recognized in Virginia that are 500 people. One of my friends, an elder of my tribe, had mentioned that there's a group in California that there's 10 of their people left, and that's it. They're federally recognized, but there's only 10 of them left, which is really sad, But to be completely honest with you, I hate it, but that's how all of this, especially blood quantum, that's how all of this was designed to work. We're supposed to just fizzle out and eventually disappear into the ether. Yeah, and like we were talking, there's people out there who are Native American who hate my people, your people. They hate state tribes in general, which currently, as my understanding, the Lumbee are still currently state recognized. But I'm hoping for that moment any day now. Right. But anyway, there's people out there that hate state recognized tribes, and one of my friends who has frequented some government meetings with me, she spoke up during this meeting with the Senate, and it was about the Indian Arts and Crafts Act, which, by the way, the largest group of people at that Senate meeting were Lumbee. Okay. The first person who spoke was from a tribe in New Jersey, and he is a brilliant man. He is a judge, and he was a member of a state tribe in New Jersey, and I'm hoping that he's the first person that I asked 2 years ago, would you come on this podcast if I started? And he said, yeah, so I've just got to get a hold of him. He's not easy to get a hold of. I've tried several times, but anyway, he was the first person that spoke, thankfully. And then somebody from that large 200,000, member tribe spoke, wasn't very happy about the whole ordeal. Down the road, a lot of Lumbee people spoke. And then eventually my friend, who is from a still state-recognized tribe in Virginia, spoke. She lives in California, but she's from a state-recognized tribe in Virginia. She spoke up and said, so let me ask this question. One day, these state-recognized Indians had the right to sell their arts and crafts, shouldn't have had the rights to sell their arts and crafts under the Indian Arts and Crafts Act. And then back in 2018, when they become federally recognized, suddenly they're Indian and they have the rights to do this. To you and me, that's laughable. And apparently to my friend, it was laughable. But to those who are trying to sell the idea that you and I and she and a bunch of other people aren't native, those who are trying to sell and convince, the general public who don't know our culture and our history and our background, and whether they omitted it from the school books or, it's just like Cherokees in North Alabama, there's a lot of history there. You just have to know where to look. They're trying to convince these unsuspecting public that you and I don't exist. We're fakes. We're made up, and that's insulting. It really is, especially knowing their humble beginnings. But in any case, like I said, you keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a great job. I admire you, Dylan. That's the reason I wanted to come on this show with you. I appreciate you speaking up for our people. That means the world, not just to me and you and your family and your people, but so many others. And I do hope that you and I can do a little bit of research and get some information together for that Lost Colony. I think that'll be a good episode, something for us to talk about, because like I said, I've seen it happen before, and there's even one on the books that whether I subscribe to it or not, it's a possibility. I'm not gonna put down the notion. I wouldn't be surprised if we were the quote unquote lost tribe of Israel. I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah. But whatever the case may be, I do know who we are, where we come from. I'm very proud of you. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode, and I hope that you'll come back again. And everybody out there, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you subscribe to the podcast, both on YouTube and anywhere else that you find it. Make sure you check out our website too, which is leftbehindnatives.com. We do have some merch like my Coca-Cola cup here. I don't drink coffee, but I drink Coke out of it. But we have stuff like that. I'll have a little notebook, some t-shirts and that kind of stuff, whatever it takes to keep the channel floating. And I hope to see you all again very soon. So y'all take care. And Charlie Mato-Toyela and Dylan signing out again.
Bye.